In this video, we're going to learn from some of the challenges that certification bodies have to face. Aged workforce, new technologies, blockchain, corruption, and maybe some of those things that you hear about, certificates that just come off a mill without any depth or value added behind them. You'll be hearing from Leon Michailidis from Equal Assurance, who's going to talk to you about some of the challenges that their business is facing and that the wider community are facing around these topics. I'm Peter from Mango, and we at Mango have a mission to get more people involved and participating in your compliance to make you successful.
Relevance of accredited certification. I think that's one of the big risks for us as an industry at the moment. So we are finding, obviously you've got a number of vendor management systems. I mean, I've listed a couple that you might know, but there's, Achilles, there's, iProLive, there's CM3, there's a number of vendor management systems, which I suppose if all of us, and I'm considering everyone in the food chain, from the accreditation body, the certification body, the consultant, the software, and indeed the client, which I think, Nicholas, you made a really good point about that. If all of us are focused on that, these systems shouldn't in theory exist, because my 9,000 certificate on the wall should be enough to say, this client's got systems in place that will give you some confidence they'll get it right, and if they don't get it right, will give you some confidence they'll make it right. And that's what it should be about. But that's theory, and in practice it doesn't happen, and so we're finding the emergence of contractor management systems that fine, thanks for your 9,001 certificate, now let's go through all the stuff that we should have done as part of the 9,001 certificate. Second party audits. So I heard of a horrible example of this where in the building products area, where one building product supplier had so little confidence in the certification that they've now just started to do their own internal certification program. They're a major supplier of building products, which makes the whole thing a farce. I mean, really, you should have that mark on the, on your tap or whatever, and that should be enough. Why should the retailer or the wholesaler also need to be doing that process as well? So that's disappointing. Blockchain technology in the supply chain. So that's another emerging area where we're looking at how trust is built through the supply chain. And don't ask me questions about it because I'm not an IT blockchain sort of guy. But what I understand is that blockchain technologies are effectively foolproof methods of building building trust through supply chains. And if you can build that trust from paddock to plate or from manufacture to utility, and you can align that chain properly through technologies like this, then what's the role of the certifier? Is it to support that? Is it to be obviated by that? So there's some of the challenges, I think. An ageing workforce is another big area for us. The average age, I think, was conducted by Example Global. Their research shows about 56 is the average age of the auditor, and that's a real challenge because whilst most 56-year-olds, I'm sort of starting to knock at that door, aren't too bad and pretty competent, but we're all looking for time to slow down and take it easy. And also we're finding that fatigue that's starting to build in, where by Friday you really don't want to be doing any more auditing, and just you do start to get into that tick and flick mentality. So how do we attract younger people and competent people? So, younger people, they may have that technical competence, but perhaps don't have the street smarts, if you like, that are necessary to deal with the CEOs, the sort of high level stuff. And how do we train and impart that knowledge? How do we make it a career as well? How do we make it so that it's not the weld inspector? I'm sorry if there's any welding inspectors here. I'm being colloquial, but how do you prevent that sort of person who sort of bumps into the career rather than actually deciding to become a certification auditor or a systems auditor? How do we make that a career? And in the end, who pays for it? I mean, as I was saying, we were talking about Nicholas before, that if you look at the pay rate for the auditor as compared to, the in-house resource or the consultant, I mean, the market is so driven down, it's so commoditised that you really are dealing with only 1% of the client that's prepared to pay top dollar to get a top auditor. That bandwidth in the middle is very much just, we won a job today that we won, the client kept going, can you do it cheaper, can you do it cheaper? I could do it cheaper, but if he'd asked one more time, I would have said, what's double the price, and he'd go away. Because it was just so price driven and so commoditised so that pressure flows on, flows down to me and my people, and I think, well, now I've no longer got much money in the bucket. I might get an auditor that's a lower price and maybe doesn't have the sort of skills that perhaps is necessary. So that's the risk that comes out. Who pays for it? A tainted image. I think it's fair to say that we're not quite the shining light at the moment, the industry. Corruption, even in developed countries like Australia, the corruption is there. It's not as overt, but it's certainly done, and I think we would be taking a very colonial sort of moral high ground if we felt that the first world countries had sorted it all out and the third worlds are still learning. We've got a lot we could learn from them too. So it's a challenge, but it's also a challenge in developed countries. The technologies used to use fake certificates are phenomenal. We've got stung a couple of times and very, very well done. It's another emerging risk as well. And so, you've got some bureaucrat in some country like Indonesia who just wants to see a 9001 certificate. That's it, just go Photoshop, grab a certificate, do the little wash up. But some of them are very sophisticated. And the one that was sophisticated with us, it took about 6 months before that was discovered as being a forgery. But in response to that, some accreditation bodies are starting to do a name and shame. You might have seen this on the Jazzan's register. There's a section now when you go to the accreditation bodies, there's who's had their accreditation suspended, withdrawn, and so on. I know ANAB, for example, the leading American accreditation body, they do have a name and shame part of their website. So I think more of that information about being transparent with the market and saying ABC certifications failed because they did not comply with this and this and had their accreditation withdrawn and making that public. Then we've got the whole privacy and legal compliance side of things, which is counter to this, and that's a challenge. But hopefully we're responding to that. And I suppose the other challenge for us is a focus on benefits. All these talking about managing risk and entering markets and so on, but there are huge internal benefits. The market is still focused on the piece of paper. How do we change that? How do we turn that around? It's one of the techniques I use, I suppose, is to recognise firstly that situation exists, and not to pontificate straight up and go, well, I'm about to download to you the most beautiful audit you've ever had. I'm very transparent. Say, okay, you need that piece of paper? Okay, let's work very hard to get that piece of paper. Okay, you got that piece of paper? Now, let's actually try and focus on good systems and then really look at managing risk properly. And I think that seems to be a better way in which we can actually say, okay, well, it's like we deal with people on drugs. I mean, we do that. Don't just say stop taking drugs. We recognise that they have an addiction. Let's manage that addiction so that they get themselves out of that situation. I think management is a better approach. And it flows down. Consultants respond to the market, the software responds to the market, and I guess invariably we're the ones that get the blame because it's our product at the end on the wall that says that's the certificate. I've been in many meetings where our industry has had a real patch, and I said, well, hang on, you've got to look at the whole food chain. I'm not saying our industry is perfect, but there's a whole food chain of things that fail along the way, and I think the client is amongst the culprits, in terms of the way in which they approach it. So.
If you enjoyed this video, why don't you click on the link and look at some of the other videos from industry experts.